So, peace and blessings. Good afternoon or good morning, whenever you're watching this. But welcome to the Lion's Den, a sacred space, a sacred place for men who are experiencing and learning to navigate through the grief process. I'm Reverend Dr. Anthony Farmer, 𝐕 by many, and I'm a certified grief to gratitude coach through the Institute of Professional Grief Coaching, as well as a certified spiritual life coach, interfaith minister, all those good things that go into doing what I'm doing. But my primary sort of criteria for doing this is offering this is one, I was guided to by spirit, and number two, I find myself experiencing grief and navigating through the grief process. It's an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey. And so a lot of what I share is from my perspective, my own journey of navigating through grief. But again, welcome to today's The Lion's Den. It's a safe and sacred space for men who are experiencing grief. My conversation or understanding of grief, it's the emotional or physical, energetic, spiritual, mental reaction or response to loss, primarily through the death of a loved one, a friend, a family, someone you were close to, or someone I was close to. But it also can include loss of a particular lifestyle, loss of a job, loss of anything that was very important to you, that you had a deep emotional, heart-to-heart, soul-to-soul connection with. Anytime we experience a loss, we can find ourselves navigating through grief, And so in the Lion's Den, what I am guided to bring forth is a way for us to reconnect to what is called the lion's roar. The lion's roar. And that is a tool, a consciousness, an understanding, a way of experiencing the world by using courage, inner strength, inner power, self-compassion, harmony, grace, inner wisdom, all of those key components and qualities that support us in being the best that we can be, being the best of who we are, being the best of what we're here to do in the world. And we can use these tools to support us in navigating through the grief process, just navigating through that grief process. And so in today's Lion's Den, what was coming to me about what to share for today is around courage. Lion's Den, courage. It's a little bit more than just, the lion always representing courage. Or if you go to the Wizard of Oz, the lion needed courage, but he already had it. He already had it. He just needed someone, something, some experience to support him in awakening to his own inner courage. But nonetheless, courage is the courage we need to feel what we feel, to honor what we feel, the courage to grieve, the courage to move forward, rather than running in circles or finding ourselves stuck in the concrete. The courage to acknowledge that we're feeling hurt or disappointment or sadness, acknowledge that we're experiencing grief, acknowledges, the courage to acknowledge sometimes the rage, the anger, the loneliness, the isolation, all of these things that can be part of the grief journey. The courage to acknowledge to ourselves that our feelings are real, our feelings are matter, and that we owe it to ourselves to acknowledge what we are feeling. As opposed to what I find myself at times, whatever I'm dealing with, it's what I use to cover up the grief because I didn't want to address the grief. And so I, subconsciously, place something over the grief and trying to deal with that. There's a quote And I don't remember the exact play, film, poem that it came from, but it says uh, it's written by a woman, or the speaker is a woman, and she said one day she sat down to talk with her anger to find out what was the anger all about, and then she realized that the anger was covering the grief. The anger was covering the grief, and so I had a similar experience of noticing anger within myself, feeling it rise up from time to time, and chose to sit down and just be with that anger and kind of look into it, look beyond it, look to see what was going on. And what came forward for me was it wasn't the anger, it was sadness. And opposed to dealing with the sadness, I put the anger over top of it and thinking that dealing with this anger all the time, and it was covering up the sadness. But the courage to honor our feelings, to give ourselves permission to feel, and find ways to navigate and be responsible for those feelings, responsible to ourselves. And for men, many of us, uh, especially of a certain age, we're not getting into that, but we heard it growing up. Boys don't cry, men don't cry. Uh, Suck it up. Be a man about it. Be a big boy. Don't be a punk. And all these things that we were told, either from family or from society or from what we witnessed in our own world. In essence, we were told that our feelings didn't matter, what we were feeling didn't matter, and we were to suppress them, ignore them, suppress them, ignore them, suppress them. And and some of that could be for what we saw with our fathers, or the male figures in our family, or the male figures in our lives, be it school, church, community, what have you. Um, how they were dealing with, or not dealing with feelings. Uh, and I remember maybe 10 some years ago, as part of a spiritual development program and expanding my understanding of things, I was guided to go to it was a women's museum, and uh, there was an exhibit by a photographer. She's well known, but I can't call her name right now. But she had an exhibit on men's emotions, and the exhibit consisted of a picture on one end of a man being very expressive in being happy and jubilant and joyful, and on the other end was a picture of a man sort of demonstrating rage and anger, and in between was this. There were no pictures. It was just a line between these two extremes. And this was from her perspective, but nonetheless, it was saying that jubilation and joy and expression and happiness and joy. Men got know how to do that one. Over here, the anger, the rage, the frustration, men know how to do that one. But all of that in between, there were no pictures. For me, it was to say, so there were no examples of how to navigate these emotions. There were no examples of how to express them, how to own them, how to identify them. Got the happy, got the rage, but none in between. And then you look at media, um, movies, and such. Um, the the examples of how to navigate through emotions, how to navigate through grief, aren't there. And then the tides are changing, but in the workforce, some companies will give you 3 days bereavement time, but then there's this expectation: hurry up and then get back to work. Hurry up and get back to work. And so our society was not available to support people in navigating grief, and in men, and also not how to navigate this grief, how to navigate what you're feeling. how to not suppress it, how to deal with it, how to own it, how to identify it, and do it in healthy ways, constructive ways. So much of the anger, so much of the rage, so much of the violence, I would wonder how much of that is covering up grief. How much of that is covering up grief? How much of that is covering up grief? So the courage for us to um, ask ourselves, how am I doing? What am I feeling? What's present? And learning how to again navigate that, identify that, be responsible for that. The first step is just acknowledging that I'm feeling some stuff. I may not be able to identify exactly what it's called, what the name is, but I'm feeling some stuff, and be okay with that. That emotional healing, that emotional responsibility is a sign of strength. It's part of knowing who we are in our entirety, because our emotions are very much a part of us. We're taught that hopefully we will begin to be taught about feelings and how to let them go, to acknowledge them, gain the wisdom from them, process them, shift them into a way that can support us in growing, and then let them go. So the other thing we do is we hold on to them, and then we hold on to them, and then we suppress them. And I'm not a scientist in that sense, but there is some correlation between a lot of the dis-ease that we experience and emotional suppression. Men and women in various diagnoses that come along, there's an emotional suppression connection to it. We find ways to express it positively, constructively, navigate it, transmute it. It will support us in our overall well-being. But it begins with the courage to acknowledge what we feel, the courage to acknowledge that I have feelings, the courage to know that my feelings matter. Just as my thoughts matter, my feelings matter. It's our body, our soul, our hearts communicating to us that something is off balance, something is out of sync, something needs attention. And if we don't find ways to do that, we find that we suppress those feelings, and we push them down, and we want to act like they don't matter, or we think they don't matter, but they run our lives. Those suppressed feelings can run our lives. For me, my father made his transition to spirit uh, 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. And when he made his transition, um, and my family asked me if I would speak. I had to think about that, speak at the funeral. I had to think about that because I wasn't going to the funeral. I tend not to go to funerals unless I'm actually, I hear that I'm absolutely supposed to be there for whatever reasons. Because it's a whole different experience for me with funerals. And when they asked me to speak, what came forward for me to share was the story of part of me was feeling that my father left. In his transitioning to spirit, he left. He left me again, just like he left me at age 12, 13. And the Reader's Digest version of that is that my parents had split up. We moved out into the county, my mother, my brother, and I. And then one day I was out riding my bicycle to a friend's house, and it was time to come home. And living in the county back in the 70s, it may still be today, there were no city street lights. The lights only came from the houses. Uh, and so I'm riding my bicycle home in the dark. Dog started barking. I got scared looking for the dog. I ran into a parked car, bent up my bicycle, bloodied myself, had to, find my way home. It was on a Saturday night. And then Sunday, we get the call that from my grandmother, that my father had moved across country and didn't tell us. And I'm going, he left. Need somebody to help me with the bike, help me with getting through this tragedy, if you will. But he left, and I can remember times of shielding whatever I was feeling. I went into the anger and went into, oh well, that's his life and do what he want, and I don't care, etc., etc., etc. I was being the boys don't cry, suck it up, whatever I was feeling and acting out. And so 10 years ago, when my father makes his transition, that came up again. It's like he left again. And part of my story of sharing at the funeral was when I was 12, he left, and it's like I didn't know how much anger I was carrying and sadness, looking back, but I didn't know how much I was carrying and how much that shaped the rest of my life until this happened. And I was like, I'm not angry this time. I'm not angry this time. And the revelation was when he left at 12, I was angry, I was upset because who's going to teach me how to be, a man in the world when my father has gone? And in this time, when he left, um, I came to some understanding of that and realized he did, in this leaving, he left with wisdom, he left with example, he left with knowledge, he left with love that was still present. And I shared that at the funeral. And I remember a friend of my family's came to me and said, I'm so glad that you did that. I wish, my son would have some type of resolve with his father or had some type of resolve with his father before he left. But it was very freeing for being revelation for me of I had carried that anger for all that long. Back then I didn't know how to navigate that, and the way he navigated some other things. Just making a revelation. My older brother died when I was 2. He was about 3, and my father and mother, navigated that the best way they knew how. But I watched them suppress their emotions. I watched them do what they had to do to get through it. But knowing that now that I'm empathic, I was feeling something. I was feeling what was not being said. I was feeling what was not, being expressed. I felt it. And maybe I internalized it, and that's how you deal with loss. You just suck it up, push it down, suck it up, and keep going. But what I've realized through all of that was how, in not having the words, the way to understand what I was feeling, not having an institution, a process, or anything to support me in navigating through those feelings or unexpressed feelings. I carried them, and they impacted my life in a lot of different ways in terms of suppressed anger coming out when it did in many ways. And so, it's fast forward into this moment. It's the courage to acknowledge what I'm feeling, even if I don't have the words, what I'm feeling. The courage to look at those feelings, the courage to sit with those feelings, the courage to um, find a way to express them, whether I'm talking with somebody, a friend, or I'm writing them down, or if I'm artistic, I can draw, connect those feelings and draw them out, and just but finding ways to express what I'm feeling the best way I know how, in such that it doesn't bring harm to me or anybody else. But the courage to go in there and look at what's going on. Yeah, I'm sad. Yeah, I'm angry. Yeah, there's sadness, or I am sad. I am angry. I'm frustrated. I'm a little scared. I don't know what to do. Is a good first step. The courage to acknowledge what I'm feeling. Even if I can't articulate exactly what it is, I know it's something. I know it's something. And so the courage to, again, acknowledge that I am in this grief. I am in this grief process. I'm on this grief journey. This grief sucks. The courage to acknowledge that, be responsible for it, but acknowledge it and not project it onto others or even project it on internally, finding ways to navigate that. And there's a story. There's a story about, and I was saying earlier, Wizard of Oz, how the scarecrow, who was the cowardly lion, wanted courage, um, and throughout the process, he realized or was brought to his attention that you have courage, but there had to be some type of experience to help him connect to the courage that was there. They could tell him, "Well, you have courage there," but for him, he had to realize it, his own experience. And so there's a story, and I'm not quite sure where I heard the story or the version I'm about to tell because I've told it in many different versions. You know how mythology is such that whoever's telling the story tells it from the perspective that is needed in the moment. But nonetheless, this is a story of a young man in a village, and he experienced uh, loss. A very dear friend of his passed away, died. He experienced loss. And for him, it was, he felt numb. He didn't know what to feel. He didn't know what to do, but he just knew that one day my friend's here, the next day my friend's not here. And so the young man just walked around numb, like I said, uh, didn't realize that he was looking for answers, looking for some guidance, didn't know what was going on. He was still numb to the whole process, the whole experience. And every now and then he would feel something inside kind of welling up, and it kind of scared him. And so he would do what he could to push it back down, push it back down, push it back down. And then one day, as he was walking through the village, he walked to the river, and he sat by the river watching the water flow by the river. And he was in his feelings, but he didn't realize he was in his feelings. He again, he was numb. He was so numb he didn't know that he was going through grief. He was going through loss. He was going through sadness, anger, but he was so numb to it because he had pushed it all down. And he was sitting by the river, and if you saw him from a distance, you would think he was peaceful, maybe meditating, being quiet. You didn't see all the turmoil that was going on inside. But there was an elderly man across the river, and he watched him. The elderly man watched. He could see. He could see the turmoil. He could see, the energy of the anger and the grief and the loss and the sadness coming up, and he could see the young man pushing it back down. He could see all of this. He could see that the young man didn't have a tool that he could use for himself to support him in moving out of that. Because again, part of him was numb. He was still numb to it all. So the older man got up from where he was, walked into the water, walked across the water, came to the young man. He looked at the young man and he said, um, sometimes in life, we have experiences and then we don't want to deal with them. So we run and hide in the cave deep inside of ourselves. And then and when that naturally happens, a guardian will show up. Sometimes it looks like a dragon. And that dragon will sit in front of the cave to protect that part of us that went inside because it was scared. He said, however, the dragon can't stay there all the time. Because what the dragon ends up doing is scaring that part of you inside, and it doesn't grow into what it's supposed to be. And he said, so what you do is you connect to that part of you, just kind of see yourself sitting in the cave, and you start to call forth courage. Just call forth courage. You call forth courage. You call forth courage. And you continue calling forth courage. And he says, and then what may happen is all of a sudden this lion shows up on the inside. And you start to feel stronger and braver. And you start to not fear the dragon. And you start to realize this courage has always been inside of you. And you keep calling forth the courage. And before you know it, that courage will start to emerge out of the cave. And it comes out strong, and it comes out powerful, and it comes out knowing that it is here to help you navigate through those things that used to frighten you. And then you realize you have the courage to look at what you're feeling. You have the courage to say, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm disappointed. I don't know how I feel. I have feelings. And that's okay, because I'm going to walk with courage. I'm going to let courage walk with me for the rest of my journey. And courage is going to help me navigate through the grief, through the loss, through the anger, whatever I'm feeling. Because I got the courage. It's always been inside of me. But now I called it for the courage. And he told the young man, and he said, and the dragon stays with you. Because the dragon, you have the courage with the lion. But the dragon also is a guardian. And it becomes company on the journey as well. And so sometimes courage may go to sleep. And when courage goes to sleep, take a little rest, the dragon is there. But anytime you feel that you want the courage to awaken and support you in navigating through your life journey, just tap the lion on the shoulder. Courage, you there? I'm here. Let's go. The courage to acknowledge, feel, understand, express, navigate, honor our feelings. And those are feelings, and particularly those feelings associated with grief. We have it. Just call it forth. Tap your heart. The cave that holds the part of you that may have been afraid or not known what to do with the feelings that come out when we're experiencing loss. Courage. Just call forth the courage. Call forth the courage. So your assignment, if you choose, is to take moments during the day, maybe in part of your morning ritual, your morning prayer, meditation, or sometimes when you set aside a little time for yourself just to collect yourself and find out which way you're going in the morning or through a project or what have you. Or if you find yourself in that navigating the grief, take a moment to call courage. Call forth the courage. 3 times, 7 times, 11 times, 21 times, 40 times is a good number. And then call for the courage and just be present to what you feel or sense or what that feels like. And then at the end of the day, take a moment to say, reflect on how courage showed up within you and how it impacted your day. There may be nothing, there may be a little, there may be a lot. But your only assignment until the next Lion's Den is call for the courage, because it's there. And if your courage shows up as a lion, a tiger, a bear, an elephant, a whale, pit bull, or any other type of symbol that represents courage for you, it's a good thing. So this is, I'm Reverend Dr. Anthony Farmer, Rev Bear. This is the Lion's Den, a sacred space for men to navigate safe space for men who are navigating through the grief process. This is a place where we can talk about some things and bring forth some things to support us in how to navigate through the grief in such a way that it doesn't bring harm to us or anybody else. And it's about moving forward, walking forward, flying forward, swimming forward, soaring forward, moving forward. Deep bow, and see you the next time.